So let's start out by taking a look at specifications. The LG G3 is rocking a 5.5-inch Quad HD display with a resolution of 2560 by 1440, a 2.5 GHz quad-core Snapdragon 801 processor, the Adreno 330 GPU, and 2 GB of RAM with the 16 GB model, or 3 GB of RAM with the 32 GB model, and a 3000 mAh battery. Taking a look at the design of the G3, I have to say it is a very sleek device. Just like the G2, there are no buttons on the sides, and everything is located on the back here where you'll find the volume buttons, the power button. We also do have a dual LED flash, our 13 megapixel camera, and our laser autofocus module. Now on the bottom here, you can see that we have our micro USB charging port, a single microphone, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. And moving around to the top, we have an IR blaster and another microphone up there. On the front side, we have a 2.1 megapixel front-facing camera, an earpiece, the appropriate sensors, and an LED notification light. And moving around to the bottom half of the back, we have a single mono speaker, which isn't really anything to brag about. Now underneath the back cover is where you'll find our removable 3000 mAh battery, as well as the micro SIM card slot and micro SD card slot expandable up to 128 gigabytes. Let's talk about the build quality here real quick. If you didn't know it by now, the LG G3 is made of plastic that's meant to look like brushed metal, but that's not necessarily a bad thing in my opinion. First off, it keeps the device light, and it's a major upgrade over the glossy back that we found on the LG G2. Plus, like many other smartphones with a plastic backplate, it is removable, so you can change out the battery if you need to. Now, when you compare the LG G3 to the LG G2, you can see on the backside here we have a slightly different layout as far as the buttons are concerned. They're in the same place, but they are shaped a little bit differently, and personally, I prefer the ones on the LG G3 more, as they're just easier to find and a little bit clickier. So now it's time to talk about one of the most marketed features about the LG G3, which is the 5.5-inch Quad HD display. And let me just say this first, right off the bat, this display is beautiful. It looks very crisp, it's very clean, everything looks like it's painted onto the screen, which I am a big fan of. But let me be honest with you here. There is absolutely no benefit to having this right at this point in time. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. LG is just a little bit ahead of the game as far as smartphone displays go. So when you're watching a video, it's going to play back at 720p or 1080p, or when you're playing a game, it's just going to upscale the content to fit the display, and we don't really have any content that is designed to work on a phone of this resolution, except for maybe the user interface that comes along with the phone. So you won't see any optimized apps or anything like that for about a year or two when all of the other manufacturers start to catch up and this becomes a standard. But at the same time, is there really a need for this to become a standard? I mean, 1080p at 5.5 inches is roughly 401 pixels per inch, and that is pretty damn sharp. So I think that this display is beautiful, but I don't think that it's a reason to run out and buy the G3 right now, and there are plenty of other features that make the LG G3 a great smartphone that you should consider. On a side note, if you would like to see the LG G3 compared to the OnePlus One, be sure to show your support for this channel and hit that thumbs up button. Now, as far as software goes, the LG G3 has a very different look and feel in its user interface when compared to the G2. Everything is just flatter, if you want to call it that, but I personally like that look. And I also love the fact that LG gives you tons of customization options. You can really make this device your own with all of the options that are available within the settings app, including different themes and the ability to add different fonts and change up a whole bunch of different aspects of the user interface to make it comfortable for you to use. Now, just like the LG G2, we do have those Q-Slide apps as well, which will allow you to open up mini versions of applications in small windows along the screen. And as we've seen with many other devices that have larger screens, we do also have a dual window mode here. We also have LG's flagship knock knock feature that will allow you to double tap on the screen when the device is sleeping, wake it up, and unlock the device. And we have knock code, which will allow you to tap your finger in a specific order to unlock the device, effectively replacing any type of passcode authentication for the device. But overall, I just found it to be a little slower than I would like, so I went ahead and disabled it. Another feature that I do enjoy is the ability to rearrange the bottom navigation bar. So you can completely customize this with either custom LG shortcuts or just completely reorder reorder the bottom 3 default buttons that are already there. I just found it to be useful overall. One thing that I do want to point out is the fact that there seems to be a teeny bit of delay when pressing any of the navigation buttons down at the bottom, and that is due to the fact that they all have dual functionalities. So if you long press on any of the buttons, it will launch something else or complete a different action, and I think the button's actually just waiting to see if you're going to long press it or just single tap it, but that could be easily fixed with a software update. Normally when it comes to these stock pre-installed keyboards, I'm not a big fan, but with the case of the keyboard on the LG G3, it was probably one of the only keyboards I've ever encountered that I didn't feel like I needed to run out and replace with the Google keyboard or Swift key. So thank you, LG, for creating a stock keyboard here that I actually like to use. And one last thing I did want to point out are these quick reply sheets that come up for messages. They are extremely helpful, and I really like the design and how they function. They're pretty easy to use and one of my favorite little software features. So next up, we are talking about the 13 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization plus. It also has a dual LED flash and laser autofocus. And basically what the laser autofocus does is it shoots a tiny little laser out in front of the camera at objects you are pointing it at and determines how close it is and adjusts the focus accordingly. And it works pretty damn good. I was very impressed with the overall camera experience on the G3. Now there aren't very many options to choose from here in the app, and you can choose from up to 13 megapixel photos and UHD quality video, and like I said, we have a few modes here, but mainly you're relying on auto mode, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. In broad daylight, you can take some pretty amazing photos with the G3. Everything is crisp and clear, and even in lower lighting situations, it turns out pretty well. Now obviously the darker it gets, the more noise that's going to be introduced, but you can expect that with any camera. One bad habit that I did notice about this camera is that in low light situations, the camera tends to overexpose anything that's lit up in the background. And since there are no manual exposure controls, there is no way to control that. Moving along to the UHD video recording capabilities, as you can see, the optical image stabilization is hard at work, but in my opinion, the 4K video just wasn't all that great. It was okay, but once you get into low lighting situations like this, the footage becomes very grainy and almost unusable for anything other than sharing on social networks. Now to give you a point of reference as far as performance goes, I ran Geekbench 3 on the LG G3 and we came up with a single core score of 961 and a multi-core score of 2580, and moving along to Antutu's benchmark app, we received a score of 29,730. So that's just kind of a point of reference that you can compare to other devices on your own. As far as battery life goes, the QHD display didn't suck up as much power as I thought it would. I was able to get about 8 to 10 hours with average to heavy use on this device, and at no point during my testing did I feel panicky and the need to rush to a charger to make sure the phone didn't die. So kudos to LG for working that out with a quad HD display and a 3000 milliamp hour battery. So what is the final verdict when it comes to the LG G3? Well, in my opinion, this is probably one of the closest devices I've seen to a no-compromise smartphone. It pretty much includes all of the features that I wanted in a flagship device. Now, the QHD display is nice, but like I said, it's kind of more of a marketing spec right now at this point in time, but that's only because LG is ahead of the game as far as display technology goes. So maybe that will improve in the future, but overall, I think this is a great device. There were a few complaints that I had, but I think that you will definitely enjoy it if you pick one up for yourself. So let me know what you think about the LG G3 down in the comments section below, and leave this video a thumbs